We're back to the Neil Haley Show, and I'm excited first to welcome my special celebrity co-host, Dr. Charles Simkovich of Simkovich Concussion Institute. Dr. Charles, thanks for stopping by, and I know you're so excited about our guest today, aren't you?
Oh, yeah. It's great to have him.
Oh, it's so great to have him. And, when you think about specifically enough, someone that, I consider one of the best Steelers right now on the current roster, and probably he's going to be a Steeler Hall of Famer, what he's been able to do. So we have all-pro star of the Pittsburgh Steelers, Cam Heyward. If again, 3-time first team All-Pro, second team All-Pro, 6-time Pro Bowler, and first team All Big Ten. Cam, thanks for stopping by. How are you?
I'm great. How are you guys?
I'm doing fantastic. We're going to talk about the end about the honor you had with Lending Hearts, but let's just break down specifically enough. Did you always want to be an NFL player? Was that something growing up you wanted to do?
I think growing up you have so many different dreams. Whether it was to be a NFL player or to be an NBA player. I stopped growing, so that went out the window pretty quick. I've always wanted to be in my community helping back, whether it was being a coach or a teacher. And so just because I had great role models, I thought maybe I want to go down that path someday. But it was always in the back of my head thinking I could maybe do this, step into the family business a little bit. But, it takes a lot of hard work, and I'm blessed to be here today.
So let's talk about your late father, Craig Ironhead Heyward, one of my favorite players of all time in Pitt football. And I had season tickets for Pitt football growing up as a kid. And, and one player, once he first put that uniform on and played for the University of Pittsburgh, he just couldn't be forgotten. He reminded me so much of Earl Campbell. Mm-hmm. How much did he influence you to get to where you are today? And so,
so much comes between my mom and my dad. I can attest that, I wasn't always listening to my dad growing up. I used to think, how does my dad, a running back, know anything about defensive line play? Boy, was I wrong. He, now looking back on it, he was a lot more skilled and a lot more thoughtful for what he said. But as a young kid, you got to be stubborn sometimes. And so I had to learn the hard way. But, just to seeing the way he affected the community, everybody has a story along with him. That's something that I want to live out in the way I live.
And how much were you happy to be drafted by the Pittsburgh Steelers, especially when, again, Craig Ironhead Heyward played for Pitt? I mean, that had to be amazing.
I looked at it as not just he played for Pitt. I was born here. And so to get the opportunity to come back here, I would always come back in the summers to visit my grandparents. We moved around a lot because of my dad, and then going to Ohio State. Me and my wife, she was my girlfriend at the time, but we would come back for Thanksgivings and any chance we got to go see my grandparents, my cousins. So when I got the call and it said 412 across, I was ecstatic. Never in my wildest thoughts I would end up thinking I would be a Pittsburgh Steeler. I just didn't know if that was in the fold. And luckily I was there at 31, and the rest is history.
And understanding the tradition and everything. Let's talk a little bit about your father one more time, and specifically, again, you were born in Pittsburgh. Understanding specifically enough, growing up as a son of an athlete, that's a challenge, right? And it's not the easiest thing in the world, right? You build the relationship that you have to look up to that person to become as great or even greater as an athlete, because I've talked about father-son relationships and people I've interviewed on my show. And it's difficult because you have to look in that area, but also the travel and all that. How did you deal with that?
Yeah, as a kid, one thing I appreciate my dad never did, he never made it me versus him. It was never a competition in that approach. I can say my dad was never my coach, but he was always there. And he was always there for advice, always in my corner. I can count on my hand the times that my parents both weren't at any of my games. And so having that and my dad being an athlete as well, their schedules are just hectic. But I always felt like my dad was always there for everything that was big to me. And I think as I got older in college, I understood his legacy a lot better as I got older. Coach Tressel gave me this quote, or not necessarily a quote, but gave me this reference because Coach Tressel, his dad was big in Ohio. And he said, my dad's got a street named after him. I want a highway named after him. And so I kind of took that to myself. I was like, I didn't know I was going to end up in the Steelers, but being back in Pittsburgh, I kind of relayed that to myself, where it was just like, my dad's created a legacy for him. How can I either expand on it or make it my own? And so that's been my own journey. And that's something my little brother is going to have to deal with a little bit too. But game on. You should appreciate that. I appreciate my dad being part of the culture in Pittsburgh and being everybody having a story along with it. So it allows us to grow this and his legacy to live on.
All right, and we're going to get to now your help in the community, because it really talks about family life. But I'm going to go to Dr. Charles Simkovich. Were you a fan of Craig Ironhead Hayward, Dr. Charles?
Yeah, I was over the years, and it's funny because in-depth conversation. I've done a lot of work with a family in Texas, Fred Akers, who actually coached Earl Campbell at University of Texas, and Fred Akers and his whole family are fairly active with me in concussion, and we talked at length before at the comparison between Ironhead Hayward and Earl Campbell, how they were very similar running backs, and I asked Fred, I said, what's the biggest difference? He said there's very, very little between the two of them. They were just bulls, and so yeah, I was a big fan of both of those fellas, and I mean, they made the game exciting and great.
Totally. Absolutely. All right. So let's talk about family life and how important family life, and that's why you give back. I think that this is the big thing, Cam, when I'm listening to your story about how your family was so involved and how they were so giving to you, that you want to give back to the community so much. And it becomes a very, very important part of your life as a professional athlete to give, right?
Yeah, I think at an early age, I got to see, how to give back. Whether it was my dad going to Children's Hospital, whether it was my dad when he was in the hospital himself, dealing with the brain tumor, he was, shining a light and, brightening somebody's day there. My dad took every moment to heart where he could either give back or, inspire. And then my mom, on the other hand, she was always getting us involved in various community events to be well-rounded. And with that, that's kind of set the tempo for my children. And allowed me to, be the role model to them, but also show them how to do it so that they can do it one day as well.
And that's so important. It's building a tradition. And then being drafted by the Pittsburgh Steelers is, again, I've talked and spoken to, people in the Steeler organization, the high level, to, again, some of the major super Steelers in my career of getting to interview. And they talk the first thing when they get drafted by the Steelers, how community becomes such an important part. So talk about the Rooneys and how they really show how important it is to be a great member of the Pittsburgh Steelers by volunteering in the community.
Yeah, I think I was really benefited when I got in. The community relations person at the time was Michelle Rosenthal, and she kind of took me under her wing. And she just introduced all these different events which players were involved in, whether it was Troy giving back to his hometown, or Brett Kiesel being involved with Children's Hospital, or Aaron Smith doing the Light of Life, and also shedding a light on what was going on with his son who was dealing with leukemia. I got to take part in all these events, and it kind of just gave me an outlook of how I could do my own. And then, building on that. So I think I was pretty fortunate. And then now we have another community relations person in Blair Holmes, who's kind She's not taking me under her wing because I feel like I'm older now, but she's helped me along the way. And when you have great people throughout the Steelers organization that constantly give back, man, it's truly special. Because it's one thing to do it, it's another thing to know how to do it, and to hit it twofold like that is pretty special.
It totally is. So talk about then wearing another hat, running an organization. Think about, you were learning the whole thing, doing the volunteer work, volunteering for someone else's foundation, doing these different things, but then doing it on your own. That's a challenge, man.
Well, I'll be honest. I can't do it on my own.
That's right. But being the leader,
being the leader, it's special. The reason I say I can't do it on my own, my mother helps along me with my foundation. And so for me, I understand I have a full-time job and being a football player, but when it calls for me to take action, I do. And the one thing I always try to do at any of my events is connect with the people we are serving. It's one thing to just, hand them something, but it's another thing to just hear their stories. So many times these kids or these people are unheard and don't get a chance to just have someone talk to them. And you just don't know about those interactions and how far they can go to change someone's life.
One thing Dr. Charles does is he sees community as an important part as well, the foundation type of work you do, right, Dr. Charles?
Yeah, we're busy. We are getting very active with Lending Hearts, which is Cam just got an award for, and we just are getting wired into a couple of military. I do a lot with military. Community here at Pittsburgh, it means a lot to Pittsburghers. I was listening to Cam talk, I was real close with the former Steeler Cedric Wilson, and he was a free agent, came over from San Francisco, and he said the difference between playing football in San Francisco and here is Pittsburghers are a family and they take ownership. And he said in San Francisco, he could go out. Nobody knew who he was. He said here, a lot of people knew who he was. He said they weren't shy about giving their comments about how he played either, good or bad. Yeah. And he said, but boy, they just it was like one family and very down to earth community. He said it's a mid-sized city, but feels small, and everybody acts like they know you. And Pittsburgh's very much that way.
Cam, what are your thoughts with what Dr. Charles said about that in Pittsburgh?
He's spot on. When I look back and there's never a dull moment in Pittsburgh, and everybody's going to let you know how the Steelers are doing, what they think. But man, we take being a part of Pittsburgh very special. They care about their community, they care about their city. And so when, I do these events, they're like, hey, let me know. I want to be a part of it. And so we get so many volunteers just because they care so much about giving back.
Totally. So tell us about your foundation, then we're going to talk about the Lending Hearts Award.
Yeah. I started the Cam Hayward Foundation in 2015, which we eventually called the Hayward House. We call it the house because we feel like we can serve so many different things, whether it's Southeastern Brain Tumor Association in honor of my dad. We serve a lot. We also serve underserved kids in Pittsburgh and Atlanta as well through backpack drives. We have a birthday bash we have every year. We have food drives as well. And then on top of that, we get to put on something near and dear to my heart, Craig's Closet, in honor of my dad, where we collect suits for young men for job interviews, college interviews, proms and dances, anything you can think of to make a young man feel good about himself. We always like to use the Deion Sanders quote, you look good, you play good. And, you look good, you feel good. And we want to provide that for young men. There's Dress for Success for young women. We partner with them as well, but we feel like Craig's Closet is taken off, and it's now in over 10 high schools in the Pittsburgh community.
That's fantastic. And you're seeming like you're expanding, and as it's grown, you said it was not for your mom. You couldn't keep be able to do this. It sounds like that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, yeah, my mom definitely keeps the wheels turning. It's not only just me being a football player, it's me being a dad too. So she's picking up the slack most of the time. But I try to make sure when I am involved, I'm on top of it, and I'm giving back.
Well, the Neil Haley show is going to definitely, even though I'm in Dallas now, Cam, I'm going to definitely have to reach out to your mom and want to see how I can help the Hayward House in any way possible, especially with the whole Pittsburgh relationship, and to get it out there. What you guys are doing is fantastic, and I don't know how you can do it. As I've interviewed a lot of NFL athletes that have foundations, and they talk about the challenges till they retire to be able to do it. It's too much work. Aaron Donald, I've interviewed Aaron, and also Aaron's sister does a tremendous job of what he's able to do in his foundation. And she talks about how much, if it wasn't for somebody else in it, it's a lot of work. It is a business. And I think, can you explain that in so many ways? Because you got to raise money to be able to do all these great events, and it has to be run like an organization, or it's going to look poorly on you and look poorly on the community.
My face is all over it, but it takes a village to do it. I equate it to my career. I can't just take credit for everything that happens in my career. There are people who have helped me achieve this, and that's nothing short to what you do in a foundation on the business side. You need great people that are committed to giving back, that understand they're not always going to get the glory, but they'll get to see the glory, and they'll get to see how many people it affects. I can't say enough about the people that help in our organization and help make sure things are organized, make sure things are smooth, coming up with great ideas, because I can't come up with I can't say I'm a great thinker all the time, but some of these ideas I'm just ecstatic about. And sometimes I just need direction, and they provide that, and that allows me to run forward full speed and give everything I got.
All right, so let's talk about the honor that Lending Hearts gave you. How did that make you feel? I saw the amazing pictures. I saw your eyes light up and how happy you were to get this honor, because it's again an award for the work you've done with this foundation and how you've helped the community.
I feel very humbled by it. Sharing with people my story, and being recognized for the work we're doing in the community is huge. But then the other stories that go along, and you get a guy like Bob Pompiani up there talking, and you understand what he's gone through and the warrior he is. I like to think he's the busiest guy in Pittsburgh. He's our sportscaster, and then he does everything else on top of that. But then getting to hear the family story that was honored that night was pretty special. And so hearing those stories, you almost don't feel worthy of being recognized when you hear those stories, and you hear about the mother's instincts and how she rushed to take her son to get him checked out. And I feel very thankful to be recognized around such a prestigious group.
Absolutely, being honored again for the reward, the Lending Hearts Friend Award, and to have that opportunity, and then moving forward. So, what is the ultimate goal for the foundation? Where do you want to see it go? Yeah.
I think the main things is expand. Continue to touch more hearts, whether it's we're doing football camps in the summer, or expanding to more high schools with Craig's Closet. The more people we can have an effect on and change their outcome of where they were headed, I'm looking forward to attacking that and making sure that we can just keep improving.
Dr. Charles, any questions for Cam before we finish up?
No, I can't think of any.
Just like to always to add things. Is there any summary? Because Dr. Charles, you've really summarized a lot of what the work Cam does and also.
I've been fortunate over the years to be involved, obviously, with professional athletes from every field, and seeing the work they do is just really it's touching, and there's so many great athletes that are giving back to their communities, and as far as Cam, and I've done a lot with Charlie Batch. Cam Johnson's another one, and then speaking about lending hearts, the job that the director Vaso Palioris does is just phenomenal, and she's just extremely humble and down to earth, and to see her going to expand nationally, it's really a good feeling.
Totally. Yeah, Cam.
I would just add one thing. I would just say I appreciate Vaso as well. She is, I only got to meet her once at the event, and so getting to interact with her and then explain her story, and you see how intelligent she is, but also how driven she is, and so to be around community like that is headstrong and making an impact so big is truly special.
What are you seeing with your career, Cam? How many more years do you want to be playing? Any thoughts on that?
I got some more in the tank. I don't think I'm retiring anytime soon.
Okay, then maybe you have to come into the ring, and I challenge you to a pro wrestling match. You don't know even my background. I'm a former professional wrestler. I'm 6'10", legitimate, and that's why I call myself the media giant. So whenever I'm in Pittsburgh, we're gonna have to have a good photo op. And you're 6'5", 6'6". How tall are you?
Yeah, I'm 6'5", but you're gonna make me look tiny.
Oh, by the way, I have a picture on my Facebook. You're gonna have to see with the tallest player in the NBA. Boban, I was and he makes me look like a midget. Oh my gosh. Did you see that picture, Dr. Charles, with Boban? You didn't
I saw that. Yeah. Well, you saw a picture of my wife and I with Cam, and it makes me look tiny, and I'm not. I'm 230 pounds. I'm not small, but I look like an infant.
Yeah, so that's the funny thing, and that's the cool thing about being in Dallas. You never know who you're going to run into. Go figure, in different places. So we appreciate it, Cam. Best place people can follow you is on Instagram, right? That's where you're really active.
Twitter, Facebook, you name it. But and if you want to get involved with our foundation, go to the CameronHaywardFoundation.org, or you can just look us up on Google. That's a simple way to do it. So thank you guys so much for having me.
I'm honored to have you. And you know what? I never get nervous with an interview. I've interviewed a lot of major celebrities, but because I'm such a huge Steeler fan, oh man, I'm like, okay, it's a different story. And also talking about your father, it just brings back memories of my family, my mom and dad. My dad's passed away himself too, and just to remember Ironhead and remember some of the exciting moments you've given us, the Steelers. You have to definitely get a Super Bowl ring. I think it's this year. Let's do it. Let's get the Super Bowl. That would be awesome.
Let's get it.
We'll have to have another interview after that. Yes, exactly.
Yes. It was a very good draft.
Okay. All right.
Very good draft.
Very good.
Appreciate it, guys. Thanks again.
All right, Dave, I'm going to run some of these tapes. Whoa, 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 whoa. Oh, Oh my god. Whoa, no. No, whoa. Whoa, no. Whoa. Ah! Come on, work with me here, work with me, come on. This party's a disaster. Come on, work with me here, work with me.
Oh, hi, Dave. Oh, hey, Henry. How's it going?
Going good.
All right. Well, keep up the good work, sir.
Thank you so much. Ah!
Hey, Dave.
What's up, sir?
Where's the viewfinder on this camera?
Oh, it's right here, Nick.
Huh. You know, you're like a wizard. Ah!
So they tell me.
We're back to the Neil Haley Show and also the Love Is Celebrity Podcast. I'm excited to welcome Kim Sorrell, author of Love Is. Kim, how are you? And I know you're excited about our guest, and I'm excited about the film because I'm a huge fan of George Foreman. I mean, again, he's a gentle giant like myself, who's 6'10", Kim. So this is kind of like, I'm a little taller than George, but I always loved him as a boxer.
Yeah, right. What a classy guy, right? So, with an interesting life. So yes, Neil, I'm doing great. Good to see you. And I am very excited about our guest, George Tillman Jr., who is a wave maker, a groundbreaker. I am so impressed, George, with your resume, the things that you have done. You have done some things to really pave the way for some incredible films that are wonderful for the Black community, even though I hate to say they're films for the Black community, but some of the films you've done, certainly you've drawn so much traffic from that. But I feel like we're turning a corner and things are becoming more for everybody. And you've done just some incredible things. This George Foreman, obviously, I mean, everybody's interested in George Foreman and his career, and that had to be an experience. But I'm so curious about you because here you are, this Chicago guy. I'm from Michigan, Midwestern, and won some awards. You've just done it. I'm just so impressed with everything that you've done. The stories that you've portrayed, just talking about real people and real lives and making people feel like they're part of the story. So welcome to our show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah. So what's been big for you? Like, I'm just curious. I mean, just because you've done so much and so much good and tearing down walls and the first of this and the first of that, which should have happened years ago, but you made it happen. And what do you consider your biggest achievement? Like, what's made you just pursue?
Well, just from watching other, like you were saying, I love telling stories that can really help entertain first, but then help other people. Like I remember when I was a kid, I saw Barry Levinson film Avalon, and Avalon was about his family as immigrants moving to America. I was so blown away, even though that family was about Jewish immigrants. And I just felt like it was very inspiring for me to tell my story with soul food about my family after Sunday dinners, after coming from church, my grandmother doing all the cooking. And even though it was African-American characters, it was fun and it was for everybody. So that's what I always wanted to do, would tell stories that can move people, get people to change their life and get people to think. So that keeps me going every movie. You know what I mean? So that's how I've been feeling as a director.
And what do you think as a director, kind of putting your whole vision into it, specifically enough of some of the films you've done, TV shows you've done, to kind of put your stamp on it as a director? Because that's the thing that people don't understand is a director takes the writer, producer, everybody put this together and make it a vision, your vision, when it finally goes on film or on TV, right?
Yeah, I think the key is the stamp is, what are you trying to say? Like a film I did years ago with Robert De Niro and Cuba Gooding Jr., Men of Honor. That was about the first African-American Navy diver. And that whole thing is about, never giving up and really choosing that. And that's what sitting down with the individual and putting in, what is the theme that people can walk away? So with George Foreman, the new movie, I was sat down with George and I was like, wow, change is a powerful thing for him. So that was the stamp that I was able to put on this film.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and I am so excited. It's coming out very soon. I am sure that it's going to do great. You've got some wonderful cast going, and it is just an incredible story. This man that was an angry guy, right? I mean, he was a pretty angry guy, which maybe as a boxer you need to be. I don't know, but he changed his life, just changed completely. It seems like that would be a difficult thing to really grab hold of in just a couple hours on film. What was that like?
That was amazing because it was true. When I was a kid, I was rooting for Ali in the Foreman versus Ali. I wanted Ali to beat the big bad George Foreman. And then like years later after college, I'm rooting for him to fight Michael Moore. I was like, he's a nice guy. Is this the same guy who created the grill? You know? And then when I sat down with him, it's just that experience in Puerto Rico that we have in the movie when he fought Jimmy Young. He people say he had heat stroke. George said it was more. I died and I came back. I saw something different that completely changed my life. And that experience was the one thing he said, you got to get right in the movie. That was the most important thing that he wanted to make sure was right. And from there, he started believing in other things other than himself. He became selfish to selfless. So I love that importance of how to change that really make me look at myself. But at the same time, I had a great time as a director. I had all these great fights with Ali. I mean, George did some crazy things where he fought 5 guys in one ring to prove I'm just as bad as Ali. Those are some interesting things about the journey in life, you know?
And I think he saw, specifically enough, when he made that change, how Ali loved people. And he had to do the same in a way, but in a different transformation. George Foreman's way different than Ali in so many ways. What did George tell you about his, like, what he thought about Ali? And also, specifically enough, did he take any of his charisma later on and kind of not copy it, but emulate some of it?
I think what was going on was he felt like during the fight, I said, were you afraid of Ali? He says, no, I wasn't afraid of Ali. I was afraid of Joe Frazier. And I said, really? But you knocked Joe Frazier out 6 times. He said, but that was the problem I was afraid of. I wasn't afraid of Ali. I really believed that I can get him with one punch. And he just kept going on and on and on. I couldn't believe he was still around in the 8th round. And he said one of the things that he learned, and I have it in the movie, is a moment right before the fight. George is putting his hand on the ropes, and he looks underneath his arms to look at Ali, and Ali is praying. You know, he's being spiritual. And I think the spirituality is what really woke him up and really saw to get him something to have a pattern in his life. You know, and I think that's something that we all need sort of in our own lives, just to believe, to help, to think better. And I think that's what made him more lovable. A different spirit was just there.
I love that. I love that. And I totally agree. It's a whole different life when you are interested, when you're open, when you're seeking, when you know that there's more to life. And early on in this interview, you mentioned dinners, Sunday dinners after church, and the things that your family did. And so faith is a thing apparently in your family's life, and something that you grew up with, and then something that's been such a big part of George's life. So how did you relate to all that?
I was able to relate when I really sat down and I really started breaking down the movie into the physicality in terms of why things happen. I really wasn't able to figure out, and it all came down to one thing. If you really look back when George Foreman fought Ali in 1974, at that point, Ali already lost to Frazier. He already was slower. He was a different fighter. And George is 25 at the time, strong, young, knocked everybody out. How would Ali was able to do that? A belief. And then at 46, George was able to do the thing. You know, and a kid coming from the 5th Ward with nothing. His whole family had to eat one burger. They had to share their food. And the teacher wouldn't even look at him because of how he was dressed. And then later, this guy would be the heavyweight champion and a grill guy who's successful. Faith, belief in something. And I have to remind that of myself. Every time I do a movie, I'm like, oh, wow, can I get through this? You know, this movie is so hard. Just keep believing, keep pushing. So that was the thing that came down to one single thing, as you just talked about, Kim. You just have to believe and put it into something else that can make you get through this and win.
Totally. Now, Kim has a question she asks all our celebrity guests about love. She wrote a book about love. Go ahead, Kim.
Yeah. So, Georgia, was diagnosed with cancer a few years ago. And then 4 months later, my husband was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer and died 6 weeks after that. And it made me question some things. And the real meaning of love was one of them. That seems to be this, I don't know. I think you put 10 people in a room, you can get 10 different answers to what love is. And so I lived it out and wrote a book about it. Love is. And so love is huge. Love's universal, and love's involved in everything. And I know it's got to be a big part of your life because your passion has got to come from love, right? Am I right about that? Like, what is love to you?
Love is, to me, and it's something that, I've been thinking about for the last 12 months, because when you make a movie, it takes a lot of people around you. You can't do it by yourself. And love is continuing to open yourself up to other people's flaws, other people's successes, other people's happiness, other people's sadness. And it's a continuing thing. To learn how to forgive is a continuing thing as well. And that's something I've been learning, is not let things drag me down. Just be happy. I have to remind myself, be happy where you are. I always look at another director and I say, I want to be better. I want to be like him. It's just like, just be happy what life has provided. Enjoy each day as it comes. It's just hard. Love is taking each day and making the best out of it and making everybody and yourself happy around it. That's how I'm learning every day,
That's powerful.
I love that.
Now, George, what is your goal for the film? What do you want the film to achieve the most? Like, you want people to learn most from this film?
Well, first of all, George said only reason he wanted to do the movie so people can be able to take his story and see that there's something else out there other than self. And I really, truly want people to come to this movie, April 28th. First of all, it's always hard sometimes. You got these big Marvel movies. So I'm always competing with the big Marvel movies. So everybody please come out. But when you come out to see the movie, you will walk away in believing that anything is really possible, no matter how obstacles are. Just keep pushing, keep trying, and keep loving. And I think George became a champion, not because he wanted the material things, it's because he was doing it for the right reasons. That's what I want people to walk away. And the movie is made for all families. I made it as PG-13, and I made it for everyone to come, because a lot of people know George as the grill, but they don't know him as the boxer. Many people didn't know that he was a minister. So that's a big life, and I really want people to really be surprised.
That's fantastic. And so you said April 28th it premieres. Is it going to be in theaters for a while, or how's it working?
Yeah, it's going to be in theaters everywhere, April 28th. The more people talk to go see the movie, the more it'll stick around. We want to stick around in the theaters before it goes to, the streaming service. So please tell everybody to come see the movie.
We appreciate it, George. Thanks, Kim.
All right.
Alas, poor talking machine. I knew him well. A fellow of infinite jest, of most excellent fancy?
Dave, I'm not dead. I'm still doing Pittsburgh Sportsline every Tuesday night and many other weekly shows on BPTV.
That's great, Al, but then who's this?
I don't know, but we must leave right now. Let's go.
We're back to the Neil Haley Show and my guest today. And, it's really exciting. I was talking locally to my local TV station again in Pittsburgh. Shout out to Pittsburgh again, me in Dallas now. But my guest today is doing such great work, but she's really building this out nationally as her next event. Vasa Paliores is with us again. She is the executive director of Lending Hearts and founder. How are you, Vasa? I appreciate you coming by. And wouldn't you agree? It's like now we're really looking at this not just as a local foundation, but a national foundation with what's happening now. It's got to feel great.
It is. Thank you for having me back. We always wondered how could we expand our services, and to be honest, COVID answered it for us. So I guess one of the the positives that we took from that experience.
Yeah, exactly. And we talked about the growth, especially of the event where you were honoring Mr. Cam Hayward, and we talked about that, and we talked about specific things with Dr. Charles Simkovich. But now I want to go to this next event coming up and how exciting this is going to be on May 20th, and you're going to be honored. So I kind of just talked about it just a little bit, but now you're going to be honored at this event, and it's going to be a really interesting event in California. So tell us about it.
The Open Hearts Foundation is giving me the great honor and distinction of presenting me with the Open Hearts Award. So this is really nothing I ever would have dreamed of. Fasto in Pittsburgh, no, that's odd to me, but very, very humbled and honored to be receiving this.
And when you think about it, how did that happen? So you've been doing such great work, and then you heard you're going to be honored. It's got to feel fantastic. And then it's like, wow, this is an event that's part of our Lending Hearts thing, because I'm going to be honored to really bring awareness to what this event brings. So tell us a little bit more about the event.
Well, it is actually 2 days. The first day is at the home of actress, artist, philanthropist Jane Seymour, and that'll be a more private, intimate gathering, is my understanding. And on Saturday the 20th is the main gala itself at the Calamingus Ranch in the Malibu Mountains. So that will be a really wonderful event that we'll have the opportunity to share more about what we're doing and really how our mission fits in with the mission of the Open Hearts Foundation.
So let's learn a bit about the Open Hearts Foundation, because I'm intrigued by it, because what you're doing with cancer patients is phenomenal. And I guess it's interesting. You talk about lending hearts, you're lending hearts. Well, what does the Open Hearts Foundation do?
I know it's hearts. Who would have thought? But actress Jane Seymour, I know I won't be able to paraphrase it well enough, but it was the inspiration of her mother. And pretty much what she would say was, when you're faced with adversity, everybody's faced with something, and you open your heart up to them and show your support. And everybody's in a time of need at some point, and how can we help others through that adversity that they're experiencing? And it really does fit in with Lending Hearts, with this time of need and beyond. How can we be there for you? And in our case, we lend our hearts to you, and we're there to provide that emotional and social support.
So it's almost like you're aligned with the same mission, almost, in a way.
Well, who would have ever thought? Hers is, of course, much more broad, and she helps so many wonderful causes and groups, and we're on the oncology side of things. But when our two organizations came together and really saw it, it made so much sense.
It definitely seems like it makes sense in so many ways. And so they're helping. What types of causes do they help?
They really opened up an emergency relief campaign during COVID, where they were helping so many organizations, from food banks and other needs that were a lot in the California region. I think maybe we were the furthest reaching one, being based in Pittsburgh, and spreading their opportunity to help so many during that time. And now they're going back to how their foundation and their gala in particular were based, and so they're staying on less of the emergency relief, I understand, and more on the grants and the mission, and providing support in that way, because her gala was always a means of supporting different organizations through various individuals out there that she was aware of.
And that's whatever different ones. And did they ever say how they found you? Do you have a story about that? How they were able to...
There is a little bit of a story. It's
that's the Pittsburgh thing. We got to have a story. Come on.
There always is a story. She came to, my understanding of how we were connected was, she came to Pittsburgh visiting, and she went to tour the Andy Warhol Museum in Pittsburgh, where Andy Warhol was from. And over the years, I've developed a wonderful relationship with the Warhola, who was Andy's actual last name family. Donald Warhola is a part of the museum. the Andy Warhol Foundation, has the family seat, and so as he was touring them, he brought up, hey, do you know Bustle with Lending Hearts? And it kind of just was there. And he had told me at the time, he said, well, if you ever hear from these folks, and many months had gone by, and then out of the blue, things started coming up, like that was into the next year. So it's funny how things come about. So yes, thanks to Donald.
You have to go ahead and plant a seed. And then when they're looking to honor people and opportunities, someone will come up to mind. And it's the work you're doing. So Lending Hearts continues to be busy. After May, it's not over, right? There's a lot more to do, right? So what other events are coming up after that?
We're always busy. It's a wonderful time. I was just talking with the Pittsburgh Pirates. We have some wonderful things coming up with our families that we're going to be doing with them. From our own, I guess, organizational standpoint, you've got to have a golf outing. I don't know, there seems to be some unwritten rule somewhere. So in the fall, we're nonstop, whether it's events with the families, events for the organization, in support of the organization, you name it, we keep going, and it's wonderful. It's such it's a gift to me. I mean, this came about because I needed to give back for all the blessings bestowed upon my family, but what I have received is just insane, because every family has their own special place within me, and always on my mind. It really is a family format. Everybody looks out for one another, and it's truly a gift. It truly is.
So people can go to your website, and that's where you're going to be able to find all the next events coming up, because you're just basically one on the next. And we all know foundations constantly need help, and the best play is to go to Lending Hearts, right? So your website again is
lendinghearts.org. Thank you. Yes, everything is right there.
Lendinghearts.org. Go to lendinghearts.org. Check out the great work you're doing, and by having constantly bringing events, having the community, especially of Pittsburgh, do you think from this experience you have some national exposure? Do you have some major goals to go more national moving into 2024?
Well, we do so much of our program is virtual. So we have patients around the country who participate with us. So that has been expanding over the years, and that has also been with thanks to foundations like the Open Hearts Foundation, who have provided us grants to offer nationwide services. Physically in-person experiences, we are expanding that starting in July, broadening out along Western Pennsylvania, and into Ohio. So we're very, very fortunate for all of this expansion. So whether it's in a virtual sense, in a physical sense, we're here for everybody.
Do you see national events coming? This is, again, just you being honored, but do you see you're doing events maybe in major metropolitan cities down the line? Like you're talking about
New York, Los Angeles,
Dallas, just so you can start to really branch out. And what do you think the major challenges of getting other hospitals to be involved in what you give in the grants? Is that a challenge to make those connections? I work with some other foundations. One of my clients is helping pregnant women that are in need across the country, and we're just starting that process and that foundation. What do you think those major challenges are to get the word out?
I think always an awareness perspective. Everything we offer is free of charge, and it's for the entire family, whether it's the patient, the caregiver, however it might be. The ages of the patients are pediatric, young adult goes up to 39, 40 years old, but it really doesn't stop, because somebody who's in remission and it really is a long-term process. It doesn't stop when you ring the bell, unfortunately. And that's where the support continues to need to be given, but really getting others to know this is why we're here and what we're offering and why we do it. So it's really that awareness and the understanding of who we are and what we're doing. And yes, we want everybody to know, because we don't want anybody left out.
You're right. And that's where I'm coming in as the media giant to figure out ideas how we can continue to make this more of a national movement. Again, Pittsburgh is the special place. We all know it for the amazing, successful people that have come from Pittsburgh to go other places all over the country. And there is a Pittsburgh Steeler, Pittsburgh Pirate, anything Pittsburgh everywhere in the United States. Well, we need to have Lending Hearts helping cancer patients and their families, every hospital in the country, and that's got to be a goal. So it's a national organization that will continue, and I think by you being honored, it's going to bring awareness in California, and it's going to keep on going. So go to lendinghearts.org, connect with VASO on social media, especially on LinkedIn, and follow them on LinkedIn, and just check out all the amazing things you're doing and working with organizations, and we appreciate you stopping by.
Thank you, Neil. I really appreciate your time and sharing our messaging.
I'm glad to continue to bring that awareness in Pittsburgh and all over the country. And for you to go global as what you're doing is fantastic. All right.